There's an interesting story out of LA where staging fake attacks isn't just limited to Jussie Smollett out in Chicago. Now, a former top official within the LA mayor, Karen Bass's office, is at the center of a similar scandal.
So right now, without any doubt, one of the biggest stories out of the city of Los Angeles is, of course, the ongoing anti-ICE riots that, of course, the left-wing media and left-wing politicians are currently covering up. That being said, on this channel, we are going to make a video about those riots, probably the very next thing that I shoot, but we also try to look beyond the headlines to other topics that are also interesting and not necessarily getting the attention that they deserve. Like the fact that the deputy mayor for public safety under Karen Bass, the Los Angeles mayor, recently pled guilty to a fake bomb hoax that occurred back in October of last year, and almost no one is covering this particular tale. This is yet another Jussie Smollett style incident, and I think that is deserving of a breakdown. So that's what we're going to do today. But before we get into that, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
So it's very important for you guys to understand that for the most part, whenever we see a story of somebody that happens to be a black public official, especially if they're particularly left-wing, calling in fake threats, that typically the target of those fake threats, these allegations or allegations as the super mayor would call them,
off of hearsay, false allegations, and not facts,
happens to be fictional evil white racists somewhere out there in the nation. This is what Jussie Smollett did, and this is what hundreds upon hundreds of other race hoaxes perpetuated on the American people have done time and time again. However, this one has a bit of a twisty twist. This particular time, this hoax ended up being perpetuated on October 3rd of 2024. Now, you guys might be aware of the fact that October 3rd of 2024 is almost 1 year to the day of the October 7th attacks, and it turns out that this particular deputy mayor for public safety decided to claim that it was actually anti-Israel people that were behind this particular call and threat and potential attack, and that is the angle of this particular tale, and it might be one of the reasons why this is not getting all that much attention. I mean, we have a Department of Justice investigation, we have a guilty plea, we have a potential 10-year sentence for this deputy mayor, and yet we don't have a mugshot, we don't have a perp walk, and I am of the belief that this is due to the fact that this is obviously a sensitive topic, but make no mistake about it, this particular hoax probably cost the city of Los Angeles more than you can imagine.
The saga began during a city hall meeting on October 3rd, 2024. Just days before the 1-year mark of Hamas's October 7th massacre. That's when Deputy Mayor Brian Williams interrupted the session with an urgent claim. Someone had called his city-issued phone, enraged over LA's support for Israel, and said a bomb had been planted inside of City Hall. Williams had stoked even more political fear, telling his fellow government officials the threat should be taken seriously because it fell around a Jewish holiday.
Now, I want to get more into the specifics of this because, of course, Brian Williams, who is named for the liar at ABC, Brian Williams, or NBC, whichever one, which is just a funny little factoid, did not really plan this hoax out very well at all whatsoever.
Panic ensued. Officers flooded the building. A full sweep was launched. But there was no bomb, no suspect, just chaos, confusion, and City Hall employees on edge. Trying to assist investigators, Williams handed over his phone, showing a mysterious call from a blocked number. Police had no leads at first.
So obviously this is completely inappropriate in multiple different ways. You end up wasting a bunch of law enforcement resources in that they had to do a sweep of this particular area. Obviously the guy is trying to maximize the potential for this hoax to be legitimate by saying it's close to a Jewish holiday, and not really reported in this particular news segment that I'm pulling from, but in the Department of Justice indictment is actually additional information on how Brian Williams got a bunch of people in this particular particular building to contact Mayor Karen Bass herself and tell her about this ongoing threat, and of course about how Brian Williams is just managing the whole entire situation. Now again, this is just not acceptable behavior, and I don't give a damn, even though I'm clearly and obviously a paid Israeli shill, the Jews completely control me, that this was done to defame the anti-Israel side. In reality, we cannot engage with this world if we are separated from fact, if we are reliant on hoaxes, and it's really unfortunate, especially when you consider that this guilty plea ends up coinciding with two different attacks on Jews or on people connected to the government of Israel in this country, so there is no real need to fake this when the pro-Palestine side in the United States of America has shown a willingness to embrace violence. But of course, this guy wanted to be the hero. He wanted to add some victimization points that he was under threat, and very similar motivations to the anti-white hoaxes ended up coming into play right here. But the thing is, it is not getting nearly the attention that it deserves, because one of the things that is highlighted in this Newsmax segment that is kind of glossed over in all the different various reports is that this guy is an absolute idiot. He ended up using a Google Voice number to make the call via block number to himself, thinking that the police would look at the block number and realize that there was nothing they could do at all whatsoever, and essentially call this a dead end.
According to the plea deal obtained by Newsmax, that call didn't come from some random Angelino upset with pro-Israel sentiment. It came from Williams himself, using Google Voice to trigger the whole charade. Eventually, the LAPD handed the case off to the FBI, and the feds raided his Pasadena home in December. At the time, Williams maintained his innocence, his attorney saying that he would vigorously fight the allegations. And now there is a plea deal in place, but no public arrest, no mugshot, no media frenzy. Just another scandal quietly absorbed by a Karen Bass administration, all too comfortable with failure.
Now look, under normal circumstances, when you don't have the implication of terrorism, it is my belief that the Los Angeles Police Department is perfectly capable of running a blocked Google Voice number, figuring out that it is registered to the deputy mayor himself, thus he is responsible for said call, and busting him outright on their own without any additional help. However, this was a foreign, potentially operation related to terrorism that was called in against a Los Angeles building that involved the targeting of not just the deputy mayor and Los Angeles officials, but federal officials. So obviously this was going to trigger the feds to get involved. And I know for damn sure that the federal government, the FBI, is perfectly capable of tracing a Google Voice number and finding out its origin. So that's exactly what happened right here. And this is why Deputy Mayor Brian Williams was busted. But again, it gets significantly worse, because this isn't a situation where he just triggered an evacuation, where he, of course, tried to target people that he didn't like politically in the worst way humanly possible. This is, in addition to that, something that ended up putting the city of Los Angeles in danger, because while he was under investigation, Brian Williams maintained his innocence. He said he was going to fight against these charges all the way to the end, and of course we know now that he ended up pleading guilty, because he is in fact guilty. He did in fact do. He did do, not didn't do, definitely 100% did do, and he should be held accountable for this. But remember, he's the deputy mayor of public safety, so of course Karen Bass ended up putting him on paid administrative leave during the course of the investigation, and we all know that October of 2024 all the way to May 22nd, when the guilty plea was announced, is a lengthy period of time where a lot of things ended up happening, and disastrously so, in the city of Los Angeles. Chief among them were the massive wildfires that occurred in the month of January. So imagine you're in this particular situation. Your city is being targeted because of this guy doesn't like the fact that people don't like the fact that they seem to be supportive of Israel. Too much so for his liking. So he decides that he's going to frame those people that are against that as being radicals or more radical than they actually are and actually call in a bomb threat. So you have the initial waste of police resources, you have the initial waste of the investigation, you have the headlines that are defamatory against the activists that you're targeting. And again, forget what you think of these pro-Palestine activists and how absolutely ridiculous they are. In this particular case, they were improperly targeted, and it's okay to acknowledge that. But then you're on administrative leave during absolute disasters in the city of Los Angeles when you're the deputy mayor of public safety, when it's your job in part to coordinate these particular situations. And of course, the LA response to those wildfires was notoriously bad. Again, I can't stand all these different various people on either side of the political spectrum that want to put foreign conflicts and foreign things before the residents of the United States of America or the residents of their particular city. Karen Bass notoriously was visiting Ghana, partying over there, having a good time while these wildfires were going off, but it turns out the deputy mayor was also more concerned with the goings-on in the Middle East rather than what was happening in his city, and it could have cost people dearly.
And as if this mess couldn't get any worse, John and Emma, Brian Williams was on administrative leave while the wildfires were ripping through California. That matters because as deputy mayor of public safety, he oversaw the fire department and was MIA during a major crisis. To top it off, he reportedly is still eligible to collect a taxpayer-funded pension, even though he could serve up to 10 years for setting off a fake bomb scare, which seems totally on brand for LA politics.
So yeah, even though I'm clearly and obviously paid by the Jews, a shill for Israel, an Isri shill, actual Israel warrior, the fact is that this is unacceptable behavior, and I'm willing to buck all of those Mossad dollars that my handlers are giving me in order to call it out. It's almost as if I have principles and like a logical basis for how I arrive to conclusions about the world, and it has nothing to do with, an overcommitment to a foreign country that you guys who are constantly on my case about this are way more obsessed with than I am. And, this actually really does bother me, but whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really need me to go into it anymore because a bunch of you dumb idiots are going to come to the conclusions that you're already going to come to. But the fact is, this is wildly inappropriate behavior and completely and totally unnecessary considering that you have all these different various people that are very loudly and publicly on that side that openly endorse violence and cheer on violence. You shouldn't have to make up a hoax. This is like making up a black crime in the United States of America. There's no reason to do it. You have plenty of real ones that are out there, but that's where we are in the city of Los Angeles, and that's a story that you're not hearing all that much about. And again, we have a public official that is escaping all the shame and humiliation that one would normally get had they perpetrated this hoax against maybe somebody else. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. You can follow me on all my social media. Support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about an LA deputy mayor pleading guilty to an insane hoax that nobody seems to be talking about. Till next time.